Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Crash Cart here at Whiskey Throttle Media. Ping has allowed me to stay on for a little while longer, so I am thankful for that. I am here with my buddy Chad Dufrene, who is another athletic trainer extraordinaire and fully versed in the things we are about to discuss. Welcome back, Chad.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be invited back. That's awesome.
That means you didn't suck.
Oh, yeah.
We got some good feedback from our knee conversation last time, so
5 out of 10, right? On a 1 to 10 scale.
I mean, that
It's
room for
average.
improvement, but it could have been a lot worse. So we were talking a lot about knee protection last time, and I have a story to tell between then and now. Would you like to hear it?
Sure.
Dude, I have ruptured my ACL supposedly, falling downstairs in San Diego. Don't you love when that happens? Look, the mechanism of injury isn't really what's important here, but what is important is what happened in the subsequent weeks thereafter. So the initial tear was a couple weeks ago. So I want to bring you guys through a practical rundown of my experience with the typical Western medicine industry, let's say, and then Chad and I are going to discuss about how bad it is. That sound good to you?
Sounds like a plan to me, man.
I love it. Okay, so I want to bring this up because I'm not the only person who suffers an injury, whether on a motorcycle or not, and a lot of people just don't know what to do. They kind of fumble around and fly by the seat of their pants and might not get the best information. So Chad and I are going to put our input, being in the system for so long, and kind of go over things. So let me wind back a couple of weeks. I'm in San Diego for a conference and end up falling down some stairs and bust my knee up. And so when I do things, I do it correctly. And immediately I knew something was wrong, right? I said a few choice words and I said, why does this have to happen while I'm 2,000 miles from my house, about to work a conference?
In one of the prettiest places to walk around and explore in the country, right?
Look, I understand why people move to California now. Yeah. Politics aside, that's a whole nother topic for another podcast, I'm sure. I just couldn't help but, the weather's beautiful and the food is nice and clean and the streets are nice and you could do anything.
The air, you can, seems like you can see forever,
At least in San Diego. But
yes.
If you go a couple hours north, that's not the case.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, long story short, I was outside of a FedEx and I slipped down like 3 stairs. My sandals that I was wearing were bald and I jacked my knee up. So when I knew something was wrong, I knew I had to handle it immediately, but I knew I wasn't going to lose my leg. So this brings up the first topic of conversation. Where do you go when you get hurt? Because nowadays, at least in America, you have several choices. I immediately had 3 choices. Number one, I could have called my primary care doctor or my orthopedic friends that are back in Louisiana. Number 2 is I could find a local doc in a box, a medical urgent care of sorts. And number 3, I can go to the nearest emergency room or call 911, right? I think all have their place. All are not appropriate in this particular circumstance. So crowd listening, if you can take your little mental guess as to what you think I did, I'll let you do that. And so 3, 2, 1. What do you think I did, Chad?
I would say that you went to Doc in a Box.
Ding, ding, ding. I went to Doc in a Box.
All right.
I was worried about some sort of broken bone. The way it felt was kind of weird. And it's kind of a weird extremity, right? I can't really diagnose my own knee. I had my ideas as to what was going on. But first and foremost, I was here in San Diego to do a job, and I wanted to make sure I can continue to do it. And if I had some sort of broken bone that needed to be addressed immediately, I needed to rule that out. So I went to a local Doc in the Box. I took an Uber there. And so, look, I'm not here to bash anybody. This is not about any particular one person. They call practicing medicine practice for a reason, right? But I'll tell you briefly about this experience at this unnamed urgent care. I go in, and the wait is the wait. Whatever. You can't control that. Fine. I'm sitting there. I'm not in a lot of pain, so I'm hanging out. And I get brought back, and I see none other than the nurse practitioner student who admits to me that she has never learned how to do a knee exam. and she's, you know, like 6 weeks from graduating. Okay, cool.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, that self discovery, or knowing oneself, saying, "Hey, look, I'm new to this." That's actually
She was quite humble.
Step. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think she was okay to admit that to me because I told her that I was a PA and I was using the language, let's face it. So she admitted to me that she didn't know it. So I taught her how to do a knee exam because I needed to know what was wrong with my knee. So maybe I could get her to do it. Well, I mean, she did it as well as you would expect for a person to do it for their very first time. Didn't give me a lot of answers. And I was like, okay, can you at least put my order in for my x-ray? I'm telling her what to do at my visit. Put my x-ray in to make sure I can walk out of here. Okay, sure. So in the meantime, the ER, board certified surgeon walks in. Board certified ER doctor. Pardon me. And her exam is equivalent to like kids playing patty cake. You know, so she's like touching my knee like this and kind of moving it around a little bit. And she's like, I'll be honest, I think you're fine. Now the effusion is starting to set in. My knee is starting to look like a balloon of sorts. I think you're fine, but I'll get your x-ray just to make sure. So she's not expecting to see anything. But why do we swell in joints?
Yeah.
Do we swell in joints for no reason?
It's magic.
So we don't swell in joints just because like your body's bored, right? I mean, usually there's something going on in there. And I knew something was going on in there. So get the x-ray back and you can see it. There's a shift. There's the bone that's kind of like, it's kind of down a couple millimeters. And I'm like, uh-oh, that's a problem. And so now immediately I think everything's like blown up in my knee. I had some choices to make, you know? So I tried calling their on-call people. And of course you couldn't get in until November. It was the first week in October at the time. And they didn't have much for me. They wanted to put me into a complete immobilizer and, you know, ship me home. And I was really disappointed in not only the injury itself, but just how everything was managed. Do you have any experience with that?
Well, no, I mean, I can tell you about the culture of I guess you can say the urgent care or the walk-in clinics in today. A lot of times you're going to go in and you're usually not going to see a physician. It's usually going to be a mid-level, and you can have multiple clinics under the same umbrella. And these mid-levels have to be supervised by a physician. Now, that could just mean them signing off on on their license or putting these mid-levels on their license. And look, at the end of the day, it's not just a medical clinic, right? It's a business. So a lot of times you're going to have these medical professionals and the owners of these clinics who are sometimes or a lot of times not medical professionals. They're going to be pressuring you to, yes, we'll see this.
Oh, yeah.
We'll take this, right?
Yeah.
Oh, your knee's blowing up like a basketball. I have no orthopedic experience. You better not send this patient out of the door, right? And look, as somebody who needs a job, you're gonna, you
have to justify your existence, right?
Well, yeah, and then look, if you saw an ER, a board certified ER physician, right, in the walk-in clinic, at least you know that you're not going to die shortly after leaving, or you're not going to lose your leg shortly after leaving, because that's what they're trained in, and they're great at it, right? Now, every once in a while you walk in and there's an orthopedic unicorn, right? And again, I could brag on my wife, right? I can brag on my wife, who is a board certified ER physician, but she also has a sports medicine fellowship under her belt.
She's quite fantastic, if I say myself.
Yeah, so you walk in and she's there. Well, that's the unicorn, right? That's the one you
hit the lottery that day.
Yeah. Look, I'm seeing a little bit more movement in this anterior drawer, this Lockman test or pivot shift than I should. I'm going to refer you here, or I'm going to recommend that you go here.
Yep.
But you can have your x-ray on the way out, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. So I guess I should have expected less, knowing, and I've worked in urgent care for 6 years, and I fully agree with you about mid-levels. And speaking as one, as a physician assistant of 13 years, I have worked with some brilliant people, and I have worked with some people that shouldn't have a medical license, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen both sides of it. The key to being a mid-level, and if you're listening out there and you have kids that want to be a PA or an NP, or if you yourself are thinking about it, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, right? You have to be humble enough to know where your skill set is, where you're most efficient, so you can improve on that, and then where you excel, and then you need to really lay into that, right? These two women providers, they didn't really know what they're doing, and cool, like go work in a family practice place where you can just never see an orthopedic patient.
Well, hey, good on the first one though, the NP that said, hey, look, this is kind of outside of my expertise here. I'll give it a try.
Yeah, I will give her that.
Yeah,
that was pretty good. So fast forward a little bit. I saw the x-ray. I realized that I'm in a little bit of trouble, but I'd be okay getting through the conference. So I stayed, I did my job, I came home. While I'm in San Diego, I'm making phone calls to my local orthopedist, the guys that I know and trust. And there's an orthopedic group that I work closely with that really took care of my ankle. They did a phenomenal job when I broke that, 4 or 5 years ago or something. So I sent him a text and I was like, hey, here's my x-ray, here's my story. Do you have anybody in your group that I can see? And he's like, absolutely. You could be seen on Monday when you come home, got it all covered. I understand that not everybody has that kind of pull. And so if you're listening to this, you might be at the mercy of whoever you can see, right? But I was fortunate enough to use that opportunity. So fast forward to that appointment, I go in for this, and I get a good exam. I know it's a good exam. But he's like, hey, look, I looked at your stuff. We got to cut. I'm ready when you are. I mean, he was basically rolling in the bed into the exam room, like waiting to get started.
Here's some verse ed. You're going to feel a little loopy. And
right. We're just going to,
Uber somebody
you over
drive
to the hospital
and
make things happen. And to be honest, man, like after looking at the imaging myself, had the MRI, which I skipped over. I did get an MRI when I got home too. I was ready to go too. I was like, shoot, okay. And what I did, and this was a failure on my part. I was so overwhelmed that I saw the one picture of the image that showed something bad, and I said, okay, there's something bad going on. And we've talked about this off camera recently, about mindset. And I want to talk about this a lot on this program, because I think a lot of people out there, they go through the stages of grieving when they have an injury, right? The Kubler-Ross 5 stages. Y'all can look that up. It's devastating to a lot of people, and it can put you in a really bad headspace. I know that when you had 2 ACLs of your own, and they were vastly different for you, right?
Yeah.
From a mindset perspective.
Yeah, and I'll talk briefly about it. The first one, I was playing in a co-ed soccer league with my wife. Third game in, 10 minutes in, I'd steal the ball from an opposing player, and I go to turn because there's open field there, and felt like somebody kicked me in the back of the leg, and
right.
I thought somebody would apologize to me and the referee would blow the whistle for a foul, but didn't happen.
Because nobody was standing.
Yeah, it turns out that kicking feeling, that was my ACL going. And look, I had that one. It was just an ACL tear by itself, and I had it repaired. And it's a funny story on its own. I went to Lake Charles because we're going to talk about if there's a medical professional that you're comfortable with, well, you're going to go with that person. And it just so happened that mine was about a 3.5 hour drive away.
Right.
Second time I tore my ACL, you were there.
Sure was.
Yeah, we were playing paintball.
Yep, like a bunch of middle-aged men.
Yeah, and I wasn't doing anything heroic, right? I didn't want to. It was crazy though. It was like 35 people versus 35 people, right?
Oh yeah, there were a boatload of people.
Yeah. Now there are a bunch of kids too,
yeah,
right?
8-year-old Fortnite wannabes.
Yeah.
You know, keyboard warriors putting a paintball gun in their hand. Yeah, that was something else.
But I was crouched down and I was running toward a barrier, and I tried to slow down before hitting the barrier, and my leg stayed in the ground and my body went forward. And I actually heard that one and I felt that one. So I knew exactly what happened. It was the same knee that I had repaired before. So I come to the, you know, the worst part is I knew I was injured, and I stand, you know, you're supposed to stand up and raise your gun in your hand saying I'm out. So I do that, and I get pelted by paintballs right when I get up. Make my way to the side, and I was, you know, and we can talk about mindset, but, you know, I was sitting there and I was kind of quiet, and, you know, you were there, and you said, hey, can I eval your knee or pull on it? And I said, sure, but it's gone. I said, I knew.
Yep, you knew right away.
I knew exactly what happened, and you pulled on, you know, yep.
So you stabilize something and then you manipulate something else to see, to check the ligament, right? And I could pull that thing to the treetops, man. I was like,
I remember
there's nothing there.
You did it. You didn't say anything. You just kind of put your head down, and then you said, Chad.
Yep. I said, Chad, can I steal your paintballs?
Yeah. Then y'all took my paintballs.
Anyway, but after that one happened, like, I saw it in your face. You were a different person because the mindset was different. And I thought, so that's really important because when I wrecked my ankle, I was non-weight bearing for 4 months. I gained like 40 pounds. I was sitting in front of the television eating Percocet and ice cream, and which is a god awful thing. And I'm gonna have to make another podcast about the medical industry and opiates because that's a terrible thing. That's for another day. The difference though this time was I was willing to accept whatever fate that was there, and I was like, let's get going because I got stuff to do. Like I have kids to raise, I have goals. I want to ride more dirt bikes. I want to do more things.
Yeah.
And I saw that same thing in you. So I guess the point of all this rambling is you get to choose your mindset, and whether you choose what we did the second time, or you choose the anger and denial and depression stuff that comes first, do yourself a favor and just kind of skip over all that stuff as best you can. And if you can't do it yourself, then find the help that you can get to get there.
Well, yeah, there was a moment of comfort and peace while I was sitting there, because I knew, not just from our education and work experience and, you know, experience in teaching in the profession, I went through it before, and I knew exactly how the next 6 to 8 months would go.
Yep.
I did, from then on. Yeah, I know I have to get an MRI. It's going to confirm what I already know,
right.
And I got to get cut on, and then I knew exactly how the next half of year to full year would go. I just knew, and I knew it was going to suck, and there's going to be a lot of pain along the way, but at least I knew there was peace in knowing that, hey, look, this is what we got to do.
Yep.
This is a job. You know, this is part of the job ahead of me. And, well, you know, I wasn't a professional athlete at the time, or I wasn't athletically focused at the time. I put that mindset in the rehab process right away.
That's perfect. Let's fast forward a minute, because my mindset in that exam room at the time when the surgeon was rolling in the operating
yeah.
You know, and he even told me this. He's like, look, you're not going to hurt my feelings. You can go get a second opinion. Like, you can get a third opinion. I don't care. And I said, I'm going to do just that. And I think a lot of people wouldn't.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people see the board certifications on the wall and they see the white coat and they're like, surely this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right? He wouldn't put me at harm on purpose. And that's so true, because they wouldn't. I mean, I give the benefit of the doubt that most doctors aren't like that Dr. Death guy on, you see that? Dr. Death on Netflix?
No.
Dude, that's insane. Like, this is about this spine surgeon in Texas.
No.
Who, like, my dog had more qualifications for him for being a spine surgeon than this guy.
God, on the spine.
I highly recommend it. It's a really good show. Anyway, I said, look, this was a really aggressive surgical plan that I was given. We're talking about fixing bones and new ACLs and repairing meniscus and all this stuff. And it's like a big surgery. And I like to do things big.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I was like, I need more comfort. So the first thing I did, I left the office. I started calling physical therapists that I knew. Why? Because physical therapists know all the down and dirty about your orthopedic surgeons. There's some really good physical therapy groups in everybody's town. Or maybe there's just one. If there's just one, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you now have the gatekeeper, right? You know the ins and outs of the outcomes of all these surgeries. So I started calling people, and you included. And I called one, and you recommended a different person down the road. And I started to think, okay, well, I very much value this man's opinion. I need to at least look into this.
And then you talked to somebody who gave the same recommendation that I did.
Sure
right?
did.
So
I talked to the
crossover, right?
Yeah. So I called another physical therapist that I trust, and he owns like 5 physical therapy clinics in the little region that we're in. And he says, don't let that guy touch you.
Yeah.
Call this guy. And this guy was over professional teams and collegiate teams, and he's like the ACL guy. Go see him. I was like, okay. So I had to drive an hour and a half. And I'm so glad I did that, Chad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I did that. Like, you know, the guy had a completely different surgical plan. It was completely different.
And this is the surgeon who fixed my knee the second time
Right.
around. Yeah.
Right. So he basically came into the room, and we looked at the imaging together. And then he did an evaluation, and his evaluation was a little bit different. And then he sat down and said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I didn't think I had an option. I came in here expecting to get surgery. He's like, look, 2 months, if you wait 2 months, it's not going to negatively affect your outcome. I said, oh, I didn't even think about that. He's like, maybe you don't need surgery at all. I was like, really? I was like, okay. So I started to get excited. I still started to do physical therapy. Look, I still had a watermelon for a knee. But by this time, I've been doing a lot of exercises and getting the things done on your own, which is a good point to bring up. It's a free society with a lot of free information out there. Seeing a physical therapist is important. Seeing an athletic trainer is important. Start doing your rehab immediately. And if you don't know what you're doing, like click on the little link right up here for YouTube, like
Yeah.
right down there, this guy, and type in physical therapy for a knee first week after injury. And you're going to get a boatload of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I already had the knowledge, but basically that's what I did. And something happened. Like I started getting better really quick, like like deceivingly quick. And so then this is the crux, and this is something that I really want to talk about. I went to a physical therapy appointment last week with that same group that I really trust. And he evaluated my knee. He's like, Arden, your ACL isn't torn. I said, what? He's like, dude, it's right here. And he was evaluating my knee, and it's like, it's right there. You feel that? Like pop, 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 pop. And it was the end point. It was the ligament doing its job. And I was like, oh. And so here's what I think happened. I think that the radiologist that read the MRI, so every time you get an imaging session done, it has to be read by a physician, namely a radiologist. So the radiologist gives you the 1 or 2 page report. Typically at the end, it's on the CD that you get, and it's the summary of everything going on in the image. And they have to, well, they're supposed to be very detailed and very specific because they don't know the patient and they don't know what happened. They're just looking at a picture, and they have to give you every speck of information on that picture. I think my radiologist was probably out to lunch, or maybe he read the imaging a little hastily, and made an impression too quickly.
Yeah, because we looked at your images and we could see that the ACL was there.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the fiber. There was some, when you look at an ACL injury, and sometimes on the radiology report, you'll see reference to something called a SAG, right? And there was no reference to it in the MRI, but which, because the MRI said that there was a rupture, right? So, yeah.
It was a mid-substance tear, they called it.
Yeah. But something could happen like with me the second time around. The MRI report said that my ACL was gone, which was right, is correct. And then it also said I had a medial meniscus tear, and he said the lateral meniscus was fine.
Right.
Well, the surgeon goes in there, repairs the ACL, repairs the medial meniscus, and says, "Well, we're in here. We're going to look at the rest of the knee." Turns out I had a root tear on my lateral meniscus, which, as you know, so the root of the, just without getting technical, the root is pretty close to where it attaches to the bone and where the blood vessels feed it, right?
Correct.
So if you the root of your the root of your meniscus is disrupted, your meniscus usually dies, right? So if they would have gone in there just and said, "Oh, we're not going to look at this. We're just going to fix what's on the report," well, then I'd have a knee replacement by now, right? So, yeah, it's usually you're not going to know until you're in a case like you where you feel better now, right?
Right.
The symptoms are symptom based, or if there's surgery and they go in and they might find something else, or they say, "Well, this is not as bad as we thought."
It really blew my mind, man.
It's practice, right?
Yeah.
It's the practice.
Yeah. Well, and it really doesn't matter the why behind it, right? And look, I'm not mad at anybody. Like, I'm thankful that I was able to step back and objectively look at it, and I sought the wise counsel of my peers and colleagues and friends to get multiple angles at this thing, right? I'm certain that I looked at that one clip, that one slice of an image that looked a little weird and funky, and said, "Oh, yep, it's gone. There's the report." So I probably did the same thing the radiologist did. Instead of going through all of the images and all of the feeds. If you don't know, and those for those that are listening out there, for CTs and MRIs, I like the analogy of a loaf of bread for an MRI specifically. When the loaf of bread comes out of the oven, it's 12, 18 inches long, whatever, it's not about how long it is, Chad.
Thank God.
So I like, long loaves of bread. Anyway, it has to be cut. It has to be put into segments. And usually those segments are a consistent length, right? And so for an MRI, you have the whole knee, which is a 3-dimensional object, but we have to put it into 2-dimensional slices. And typically it's like a 2-millimeter slice, right? And so you can potentially get one slice that gives you a weird look. That's why there's a collection of them. And I'm certain that's what happened to me, because I went on to another image and sure enough, we saw it. Thank God we saw it too.
And that one slice could show a defect that's minimal, or it can be interference. It could be just an error.
Interference, swelling, artifact, right?
Noise, right? Yeah.
Yep. A lot of stuff can throw it off. So
when they tell you, "Please be still," right?
Right, exactly.
Please be still, and it's impossible to stay still in an MRI. I mean, you can try as much as you want, but
right, and you do your best effort.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But crazy stuff, dude. So if I listened to the first provider, he would have gotten in there and said, "Oh, it's intact," or maybe it's like slightly damaged, right? And so then what do? Right? You're going to rip out a perfectly good ACL, or even like 80% good ACL?
20 years ago, yes. 15 years ago, yes.
Yeah.
No, we're entering new territory now.
Yeah, with biologics and stem cells and
how much time do you have, y'all?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we won't.
Another episode, right?
If I can charge you with anything, right? If you get injured, one opinion is 0 opinions. You need at least 2 opinions on these things, especially if it's a surgical case. If this is you're not going to surgery, it's a physical therapy thing, you're already starting to feel better, fine. But if it's a big deal, go get a second opinion.
Yeah.
Call around. Accept nothing as truth until you have a collection of data. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And look, it's easy for us as, we're in the field and we have a lot of experience in the field to have just one, our opinion's one, right? And then having another opinion. And what if you have no medical expertise or sports medicine expertise whatsoever? Right. Then what do? Well, you refer to the experts. Look, I'm flattered to be on this podcast, this motocross, but I have zero knowledge of the sport.
No.
I respect the hell out of it, though. I mean, it's just amazing to watch. I don't understand what's going on, but it's just one of those things that but you refer to the experts. I didn't know what whiskey throttle meant before you told me. So
that's funny.
Yeah,
I know. But also you've watched more ball and stick sports than I could ever imagine, right? And so when it comes to the biomechanics, this is why you have experts. This is why you have people that specialize in stuff. And I've been blessed enough to work in the sport that I know and love for 15 years trackside. And so, you have to seek the advice and the expertise of somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
What else you want to add to that?
Well, I mean, I know that we were also talking about, mindset and things like that, just, dealing with injury and what goes into rehabbing and getting back on track or getting back on the field from this injury. In your case, well, it's since it looks like you're probably not going to need surgery, right?
Amen to that.
As it looks now, right? For you to be able to be active again in anything with moderate activity where there is the possibility of the mechanism, much less walking downstairs, right, with full hands or whatever, or walking up the stairs, which I've told you before. I've always had an unnatural fear of that, especially when I became a father, watching your child walk down the stairs.
Yeah.
And he wants to hold stuff in his hand. I get the willies. And when you didn't even have to explain yourself when you said, I said, I get it. I understand.
Chad's going to be the youngest guy ever to install one of those motorized chairs that go up and down stairs in his house. He's going to have this, I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yeah.
We're going to have to tattoo that on his shoulder or something. Mindset can be its own podcast. Because it weighs over so heavily into every aspect of your life, whether it's your professional life and your career, or if it's your recreation, like your sport that you do, or whether you're a professional athlete. I'm fully convinced that in the world of motocross and supercross, these professional guys, all of them are twisting the throttle the same, right? All of them are giving it the exact same effort on the track. Championships are won and lost between their ears, and it's a mentality thing. And that's why I'm really excited about a lot of the up and comers that are coming up, because a lot of them have really strong mindsets, right? They have good work ethics. They're able to handle the pressure, the travel, the media in their face, the day in, day out. And that's so important. And to tie it into, injury and recovery from injury, sometimes you do everything right and you get hurt. And when your body makes your revenue, right? And in the case of, big athletes or whatnot, or if you have to travel a lot, then that puts a ton of pressure on you. And it's easy to cave into that. But just a little bit of perseverance and a little bit of a mindset shift can be the difference in success and failure. What would be the first thing you would tell somebody pertaining to their mindset if they were to come to you with an injury?
Well, I would say that, man, you just have to, it's, me coming from I guess you can say from the perspective of an athletic trainer, where you have, it's not like a physical therapist where, you have this patient and you just read about them, they come in or you read the report or the referral and they come in and athletic trainers, usually you're around them when they're well too. So you get to know the athlete at their best, at their mid-level and then at their worst, right? So I would say whether you're familiar with this athlete or not, or, the best advice I can give is you have to know exactly why you're doing anything that you're doing. What's the reason why I'm on this, let's say after surgery, right? I'm on this machine that bends my knee and straightens it without me doing it. Bends my knee, straightens it, because sometimes you might be on one of those CPM machines
Right.
where, which I was the second time around. I wasn't the first time around. Why are we using ice? Why are we using this modality? Why are we doing this exercise? Why are we doing that now? Why can't I do this now? Look, your practitioner, they're working with patients all day. They or the specialist, they might seem like they're bothered by answering all of these questions, but you have to know, having a knowledge of what you're doing and why you're doing it. Even if it's like you're trying to stay healthy. I remember you referred earlier about how you had ankle surgery and you gained 40 pounds, right? Well, it's easy if you don't know the reason why you're not in a good mood or a good headspace or in a good place, and you're just stuffing a whole bunch of food and you're not moving around, right? But let's say you're eating healthy 5 days out of the week or 6 days out of the week, and you have that one day where you just go ham, right? You go wild, right? You have to know that there's a reason for this. It's psychologically, I can't do much right now, and this makes me happy. Like, I want to go eat a cheeseburger and I want to go get ice cream after, all right? Or I want to have a few beers, whatever it is. You have to have a reason for each thing that you do.
Yeah.
And it makes life easier. It's not easy, but it makes it easier to understand. And if you understand life or have a general understanding of what's going on, then it's just like, I don't have an understanding of what's going on the bike, but these athletes do, right?
Right.
They get injured, but then they get injured. Well, now they're in unfamiliar territory. Well, make that unfamiliar territory familiar.
Yep. It's your job to translate for them.
All right, I'm gonna get off my soapbox.
I love that. No, dude. And that really relays into everything though. Like, that was one of the little mantras that I always grew up with, right? I'm not going to know all the answers, so I need to seek the people that do have the right answers.
Yeah. And how many times you ask, because I said so, right? The parents.
Yeah.
Why do I have to do this? It's because I said so.
Yeah. I hate saying that to my kids. I try not to all the time, but it's because they're looking to you for answers. I think you said something that's really important as far as mindset goes, is you're kind of stepping out of the matrix when you put an explanation to whatever you're doing, right? Why did I get hurt? Well, I got hurt because, it was an unfortunate accident, and I'm still the best rider in the world, or I'm still the best up and comer in my state, or I'm still me that just had an accident.
Yeah.
And that accident doesn't define me, doesn't define my racing career. It doesn't define anything. It's just part of it. Period. Next sentence.
Yeah.
Right. Next chapter. Like, let's move on and let's get past it. Right. I am doing these 3 things today because they help me achieve the goal that I want to achieve. I don't want to get overwhelmed with the enormity of said things. Right. But I just want to know I have these 3 things that are on my plate, and they don't identify me. They don't make me a bad person if I don't do them. But I really think that helps you just keep moving along and have something to reach for.
Yeah. And there's some things you're not going to understand, but as long as you're at peace without understanding, you come to some sort of agreement with yourself or an entity, right? And that, look, I'm not going to understand this, but I'm going to do it because at least I know that I'm at peace with knowing that it's on the way, on the path of getting better.
I love it.
And look, I think it's not physically, but I think it's easier to have surgery, right? Because to have a repair, because that you have to do this now. It's required. If not, you're going to be in really bad shape if you don't rehab this.
Sure.
But let's say if you end up kind of like you, how it looks like you're not going to have surgery. Well, it's easy for you to just go on living life as usual. You're going to still feel it, right? But there's not that like that set concrete job in front of you to get better, right? That might happen. But as well as I do, me being 40 now and you on your way, it's harder to get out of bed, right? It's harder to stay awake past 8 p.m., right? It's harder to do all these things. Well, it's the body. It's telling you what it needs. And for you now, you just need to get better. And for you to do that, you need to meet it halfway.
Yeah, exactly. I got work to do.
Yeah.
So it's, I'm glad we touched on that. It's a big thing that most people don't know how to talk about or don't talk about at all. Or, so whenever you're injured, call Chad.
No.
And he'll sing you a lullaby and get you back on track.
Yeah. It's just, you have to have purpose. It's easy to have purpose when you're in familiar territory, and as dangerous as it looks to me, I'm sure it is dangerous to do moto, but if you're familiar, if you're in that area of familiarity with it, well, then it makes it, it's dangerous. It is dangerous, but you're at peace with that. And that's all rehab is, that's all getting through an injury and recovering from whether it's a surgery or no surgery. It's just being at peace with the decisions that you make or the decisions that are made for you medically, and moving forward.
Yeah. In life or in health, or in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Make that decision and like plant your feet in it, cement it and then roll.
And look, I see teaching in sports medicine for a little bit over 10 years, I think that, I haven't worked with an athlete as in the field. It's been a while, but I think it makes me better at that, being a teacher, because, it gave me an understanding, because I would teach my students to say, well, look, it's easy if you're working with models on a computer as patients, or if you're working with these, like you'll see, some professions, they mostly use dummies, right? Simulations and dummies. I'm like, well, that's good while you're in the beginning stages of learning, but that's not going to cut it. You need to have hands-on with real patients, because they're human beings, and they're human beings that you don't understand you might not understand their lives otherwise. I would feel 100% comfortable working with I've been saying moto, that's right. Saying a moto athlete, right?
Yes, yeah, and perfect.
Because I don't understand their sport, but man, I would love to work with a moto athlete, because I know in order to do that and to be successful at that requires the same type of dedication, the same mindset, and the same peace at doing unfamiliar things, right?
Sure.
That it would to get back on the track from that, using my expertise to help you get back on the track.
So I want to recap a little bit, because I know we talked about a lot.
Yeah.
If I had one thing to give you, and it was my last and dying breath pertaining to this episode, is seek wise counsel, man. And then a body of work is better than one piece of it, right? So, a jury is going to judge you by the collection of evidence that is presented, right? So I don't want one opinion. I want several opinions. And in a perfect world, all those opinions would line up. But if they don't, then you got to go with your heart and see which one is best for you.
Yeah, I can just end with the best advice is just to kind of repeat what I said. It's just to ask that most uncomfortable W word with a question mark behind it. It's why.
Right.
Why am I doing this? Why are you jumping this quickly to make the decision to cut on me? Why are we, like, why is there another option for me that's non-surgical?
Yep. Yeah, I did say that the other day when we were talking, is patients are always terrified of asking their providers questions.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was a kid, I would be scared of the guy in the white coat and I wouldn't say anything. But damn it, like, open your mouth and ask them the questions, or even better, like, come in with a piece of paper and have those questions written down beforehand, because you're going to have 50 questions before you walk into the room. Like, well, what about this? And what about that? And two things happen when you're in that room. Number one is you forget 90% of what they said. And number two, you're going to come up with 90 more questions when you walk out. So ask the damn questions. I never minded when a patient came in with a handwritten note full of questions, because this is their life, man. Like, they don't know.
Yeah.
They're coming to you for this stuff.
And it shows that they're invested in their health.
Right.
Which, I mean, that's a...
I'm going to take them much more seriously.
Yeah.
If they're like that, as opposed to someone, well, whatever you tell me. Like, no, it's your life. Ugh. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah. This is fun, man.
Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, we just created a list of topics to talk about next time.
Sure did.
Yeah.
All right. Well, until next time, this is Chad and Arden from Crash Cart, Whiskey Throttle Media. Please give us a like and a subscribe and all that fun stuff on your social media accounts. If you haven't done so already, we'll talk to you later. Peace.
Appreciate it, y'all. Thanks.